Sheriff David Holbrook had worked in the county for over 20 years. He knew every back road, every farmhouse, and every rusted fence post. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he thought. That night, the call from the dispatcher broke that certainty. "Sheriff, we just received a transmission," the young dispatcher said, her voice shaking. "It came through the patrol frequency. Someone's crying for help. But there's no unit logged in that sector." David frowned and reached for his radio. "Play it." The office speakers filled the quiet with static, then a burst of sound. A woman's voice, faint but urgent, words lost in distortion. Then came a scream, sharp enough to make the hairs on David's arms rise. After that, coordinates read aloud in a robotic tone, followed by silence. The location matched the old cemetery north of town. No patrols had been assigned there in years. There was no reason for anyone to be near it at night. David's jaw tightened as he grabbed his keys. He drove out under a moonless sky. His cruiser cut across empty fields, headlights bouncing off the tall grass at the roadside. The dispatcher checked in twice, but he barely responded. His focus locked on the coordinates, replaying that desperate scream in his head. When he turned onto the gravel road leading to the cemetery, he slowed down. The gate loomed ahead, flanked by leaning stone pillars, and parked right in front of it, half in the ditch, was a patrol car. David stopped. The sight made no sense. The county had only 6 marked vehicles, all accounted for. This one looked identical. Same light bar, same paint, same number stenciled on the side, except the number didn't match any of theirs. He stepped out, the gravel crunching under his boots. The night was so still he could hear his own heartbeat. The cruiser's engine wasn't running, but the interior light glowed faintly. As he approached, the radio inside crackled. A woman's whisper slid through the static, repeating the same broken phrase again and again. David leaned closer. The words grew clearer. "Help me. Please, help me." His breath caught in his throat. He opened the driver's door. The seat was empty. No sign of an officer. The dashboard clock blinked erratically, stuck at 12. The radio continued to whisper, the voice sounding closer now, as if the speaker were just inches from his ear. He reached for the microphone. The moment his hand touched it, the whisper stopped. Silence pressed in. Then the microphone hissed, and the same coordinates were read again in that mechanical voice. But this time the numbers were different. They pointed deeper into the cemetery. David lifted his flashlight, aiming the beam beyond the iron gate. The headstone stretched into the darkness, crooked and worn with age. The path wound between them, leading to the far tree line. He hesitated only a moment before pushing the gate open. The hinges groaned like something waking from sleep. He glanced back at the strange cruiser. The radio clicked once more, but no words came through. Only a slow, rhythmic breath, the kind of sound a person makes when they're standing right behind you. David spun around, light sweeping across the empty road. Nothing there. He drew his sidearm, pulse racing, and stepped inside the cemetery. The deeper he walked, the heavier the air felt. The grass was damp, his boots sinking into the soil. Some of the headstones bore names he recognized from old town records, families long gone. At the far end, halfway down the path, his radio came alive. Not from his belt, but from the cruiser behind him. The woman screamed again, louder, rawer. The cry echoed across the gravestones, too sharp to be only static. He pressed forward. The coordinates led him toward a collapsed mausoleum near the far edge. The structure had crumbled years ago, leaving a pile of stone and a gaping dark opening where the entrance once stood. His flashlight beam trembled as he raised it. The radio's voice returned, whispering from everywhere at once. "Help me. Inside. Inside." David stood at the broken threshold, his light cutting into the hollow interior. Something moved in the shadows. David steadied his gun, his breath clouding in the cold air. The collapsed mausoleum smelled of wet stone and earth. His flashlight caught fragments of names carved into broken slabs, but the beam couldn't pierce the far end. "Sheriff Holbrook." The voice drifted out of the dark, female, trembling, almost pleading. But it didn't come from his radio. It came from inside. He froze. "Who's there?" No answer, only the scrape of something shifting across the ground. David stepped inside, his boots crunching on shattered marble. The walls closed in quickly, the ceiling low. His light swept past a cracked coffin lid lying at an angle. Something had forced it open. The whisper rose again, closer. "Help me." He aimed the beam at the sound. Nothing but empty stone and dust. Then the radio on his belt came alive. A burst of static screamed into his ear, followed by a new set of coordinates. The numbers repeated, faster and faster, until they dissolved into guttural breathing. He backed up, nearly stumbling. The flashlight beam shook over the stones. A shadow darted across the wall, too fast, too sharp. "Show yourself," he barked. His voice cracked in the stillness. The breathing stopped. In its place came a chorus of whispers. The same woman's voice multiplied, overlapping, rising from every corner of the mausoleum. The words blurred together until they became one steady chant. "Stay with us." David raised his gun, but the shadows moved on their own. The air thickened, pressing against his chest. He bolted out, stumbling into the night. The cemetery seemed endless now. The path back twisted in directions he didn't remember. Headstones loomed higher, closer together, their engravings worn into blank faces. The beam of his flashlight flickered, dimming with every step. Behind him, the radio still whispered, each word synced with his heartbeat. "Stay, stay, stay." He forced himself forward, searching for the gate. When he finally saw it, relief struck hard. The strange cruiser still waited outside, light glowing faintly inside. But something was wrong. Another figure stood next to it. A man in uniform, his back turned, head bent as if listening to the radio. David called out, "Identify yourself." The figure didn't move. He aimed the flashlight. The uniform was county issue, but the patches were decades old. The number on the car door matched the badge on the man's chest. Deputy Clark. David whispered, remembering the name. Clark had gone missing 30 years ago. His patrol car was never found. The figure turned. His face was pale, eyes hollow, jaw slack, as if he'd forgotten how to hold it closed. The radio in the cruiser hissed, and the female voice screamed again. David raised his gun. His radio cut in over his belt, the dispatcher's panicked voice breaking through. "Sheriff, where are you? Your signal's all over the map. We can't trace you. Talk to us." He pressed the mic, but only static answered. His words wouldn't go through. Clark stepped closer, dragging his boots across the gravel. The sound echoed like iron on stone. The whisper from the radio softened. "Join us, David." David backed toward his cruiser. He had to get out. His pulse thundered, but when he looked again, his own vehicle was gone. Only the old cruiser remained, its doors open, radio glowing. Inside, the passenger seat was no longer empty. A woman sat there, her head bowed, hair draped over her face. Her hands rested on her lap, skin as pale as bone. The whisper came from her lips. "Help me." David stumbled backward. His foot caught on loose gravel, and he hit the ground. The flashlight rolled away, beam spinning across the gate. In that spinning light, the cemetery beyond was no longer still. Dozens of figures stood between the graves, some in uniforms, some in torn dresses, some in nothing but shrouds of soil. They stared with hollow eyes, their mouths moving in the same silent chant, "Stay with us." The radio roared louder than ever, the scream twisting into laughter, then back into pleading. The woman in the cruiser lifted her head. Her face was blank, features blurred, like wet paint sliding down canvas. David scrambled to his feet and ran. He didn't care where. The path bent and broke, every step taking him deeper instead of out. He called dispatch again, shouting into the mic, but no voice came back. Only his own words echoed, warped, as if replayed by something that learned to mimic him. Ahead, a second cruiser appeared on the path, identical to the first. Its number was different again, older still, rust eating its edges. The door swung open slowly. A radio inside repeated his voice, his exact words. "This is Sheriff Holbrook. Can anyone hear me?" The voice stuttered, replaying, overlapping. Then the whisper cut through. "Now we can." The world tilted. The cemetery swallowed the horizon. The last thing David felt was the radio buzzing against his chest, pulsing like a second heart. When the dispatcher finally tracked the signal, it was gone. No cruiser, no Sheriff Holbrook, no trace at all. But later that night, a new transmission came through the patrol frequency. A male voice, distant, strained. "This is Sheriff David Holbrook. Help me." And the coordinates that followed pointed straight back to the old cemetery gates. Sheriff Mark Douglas had worked in the county long enough to know every stretch of road by heart. Most nights were quiet, broken only by the crackle of the radio and the low hum of his cruiser. That night, however, the dispatcher's voice carried a strange tension. "Unit 12, we got a call from a trucker heading east. He says there's a sedan parked on Route 9, no hazard lights, doors open, might be abandoned. Check it out." Mark acknowledged and turned off onto the lonely highway. The night was still. Only the chirping of insects and the low whine of wind passed through the trees. After 10 minutes he saw it, a faded silver sedan sitting crooked on the shoulder. Its doors hung wide open. He parked it a few feet back and stepped out, hand brushing the grip of his flashlight. The beam cut across the car's interior, empty. The key was still in the ignition. The driver's seatbelt dangled loose, swaying as though someone had just left. "Dispatch, this is 12, Mark said into his radio. "Vehicle's empty. Doors open, key still in. Looks like it was abandoned. Requesting tow." "Copy that, 12. Tow's en route. ETA 40 minutes. Mark circled the vehicle. No footprints on the shoulder. No broken glass. No signs of struggle. Just the stale smell of fast food wrappers inside and the faint rust of old metal. The highway stretched forward into shadow, quiet as a grave. He sat back in his cruiser, scribbling notes. Something felt off. He could not shake the impression that someone had stepped away only moments before his arrival. The trees beyond the ditch stood in silence, their branches swaying like watchful arms. When the tow truck confirmed they were close, Mark decided to head back toward the station and meet them halfway. He started the engine and rolled onto the empty road. The asphalt stretched ahead, marked by faded white lines. A battered billboard rose on the right, half its paint stripped by weather. A mile later, he saw a pile of trash bags left by the shoulder, black plastic glistening under the headlights. He noted it idly, driving on. Then something caught his eye. Another billboard, the same one, Same torn ladders, same peeling wood. His jaw tightened. He slowed down, scanning the road. The same pile of garbage bags lay ahead, slouched against the same patch of grass. Must have turned around without noticing, he muttered. He checked his rear-view mirror, but the road behind him was swallowed by dark emptiness. He pressed the accelerator, intent on making it back. A few minutes later, his headlights washed over the same sequence. Billboard, trash bags, cracked road sign with graffiti scrawled across it. His pulse quickened. "Dispatch, this is 12, he said, forcing his voice steady. "I think I'm experiencing some kind of navigation issue. Roads, repeating. I passed the same landmarks. Could you confirm my GPS signal?" The radio crackled, hissed, then went silent. He repeated his call. Nothing answered, only static. Mark swore under his breath. He rolled his shoulders, trying to ease the tension creeping along his spine. Maybe fatigue was playing tricks on him. He had been working late shifts all week. He drove on, gripping the wheel tighter. After another 5 minutes, the landmarks returned yet again. Only this time the loop was shorter. The billboard appeared faster than before. The trash bag sat closer. The sign leaned at the same odd angle, but it came quicker, as though the road had folded in on itself. Mark's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. He pulled to the side, headlights sweeping across the ditch. He opened the door, breathing in the cool night air. The forest pressed close now, thicker than he remembered. Branches arched overhead, blotting out most of the sky. The silence was heavy, unnatural. Something shifted between the trees. A figure stood there, half hidden in shadow. For a split second, Mark thought it was a hiker. The person's clothes were ragged, skin pale in the glow of his headlights. "Hey," Mark called. "You need help?" The figure didn't move. Another shape appeared beside it. Then another. More people emerged from the tree line, their faces blurred by distance. Mark counted 5, maybe 6. All stood in silence, watching him. He touched the radio again. "Static. Listen, folks, road's not safe here. Tow's on its way. If you need a ride, speak up." None of them spoke. As his eyes adjusted, he noticed something strange. Every one of them wore the same grin. Lips stretched wide, teeth bared, identical expressions frozen on their faces. Mark felt the shiver crawl down his back. He climbed into the cruiser and shut the door, locking it with a click. The figures remained where they were, lined up just beyond the ditch, still smiling. He drove forward again, faster now. His heart pounded against his ribs as he scanned the edges of the road. Billboard, trash bags, sign, again, only now the loop was even shorter. And the smiling figures were closer. Mark's breathing grew shallow. The steering wheel was slick with sweat. His headlights cut the darkness in harsh beams, but no matter how far he drove, the landmarks came quicker. First minutes apart, then seconds. The billboard now appeared almost instantly. The trash bags lay just beyond it. The graffiti-covered sign loomed a heartbeat later. Each cycle shorter, tighter, like a noose. And each time, the figures moved closer. At first, they stood back at the tree line. Then they appeared by the ditch. Then near the shoulder. Always the same faces, the same ragged clothes, the same stretched grins. They never spoke. They never blinked. Mark gritted his teeth. He slammed the brakes, tires screeching. The cruiser shuddered to a stop. He yanked open the door and stepped out, flashlight in hand. "All right," he shouted, voice echoing across the empty road. Form. "Enough games. Who are you people?" Silence. Then, slowly, they began to walk. Dozens of shoes scraped against the asphalt as the group advanced. They moved in sync, every step matched. Their grins never wavered. Mark aimed the flashlight at the nearest figure, a man with hollow cheeks and lifeless eyes. His skin was gray, stretched tight, but his mouth was twisted into the same smile as the others. Mark raised his hand to his holster, then froze. If they were locals, if they were real people, drawing a weapon would make everything worse. But something in his gut screamed that these weren't people. He climbed back inside the cruiser, slammed the locks down, and floored the accelerator. The figure stopped, watching him vanish into the dark, but the road betrayed him again. The landmarks flashed by faster than ever. Billboard, bags, signed, and now the figures were already there waiting. Mark swerved hard, tires screeching as the cruiser nearly tipped. The group didn't flinch. They simply turned their heads as one, following his path with those identical smiles. "Dispatch," he roared into the radio. "If you hear me, I need backup. Route 9, mile marker 38. I'm stuck. Something's." His words cut off. The radio clicked. A voice came through, faint, broken by static. "Leave the car." Mark froze. "Who is this?" "Dispatch. Leave the car. Walk." The signal dissolved into hissing noise. He tossed the radio aside, pulse racing. His training told him to stay inside the vehicle. But another part of him, deeper and older, whispered that the car was the trap. The loop tightened again. The road shrank to only a few hundred feet of asphalt, repeating endlessly. The landmarks blurred together. His headlight showed nothing but billboard, bags, sign, then the same stretch again. And the figures were everywhere now, lining both sides of the road, rows of them smiling, silent, unblinking. Mark slammed the brakes and skidded to a stop. His chest heaved. Sweat dripped into his eyes. He knew he had two choices: stay inside until they closed in, or step out and face them. He drew his sidearm and opened the door. The night air hit him cold and sharp. "I don't know what you want," he said, his voice cracking. "But you're not taking me." The figures didn't answer. They stood in silence, teeth glinting. Then, in perfect unison, they raised their arms and pointed toward the forest. Mark's stomach turned. "No," he whispered. One of them took a step forward, then another. They began to close the circle. Mark backed away, weapon raised. But no matter where he aimed, each face was the same. The same grin, the same dead eyes. The radio hissed again. "Leave the car." He spun, glaring at the cruiser. Its headlights still shone down the endless loop of road. But now it looked wrong. The interior shimmered like heat haze. The steering wheel was twisting, reshaping into something not meant for human hands. Mark stumbled back. The figures moved faster now, feet dragging across the asphalt. Their grins widened impossibly wide, splitting their cheeks. He fired a warning shot into the air. The crack echoed across the forest. Not one of them flinched. They only came closer. Mark's breath came in short gasps. The trees loomed behind him. The road was gone. The landmarks dissolved into darkness. Only the figures remained, surrounding him in a tightening ring. He thought of the voice on the radio. "Leave the car. Walk." He stepped backward into the woods. The figures stopped at the tree line, still grinning, watching him vanish between the trees. For a moment he felt hope. The forest smelled of damp earth and pine. He stumbled forward, branches snapping underfoot. His flashlight beam danced across trunks and roots. Then he froze. Ahead, through the trees, stood a silver sedan. Its doors hung wide open. The key was in the ignition. The same car. The same scene. Mark's knees weakened. He staggered back, shaking his head. No, that's not possible. The forest behind him shifted. Figures stepped out from the shadows, smiling, blocking every escape. Mark realized the truth then. He was never leaving Route 9. The road had swallowed him whole. The car, the signs, the forest, the watchers, they were all part of it. The last sound he heard was the static of his radio, whispering in a voice not his own, "Smile." Sheriff Daniel Harlow sat behind his desk, the station quiet except for the hum of the old fluorescent light above him. Midnight had passed. Paperwork spread across his desk, but his mind drifted, too tired to focus. The phone rang, sharp and sudden, cutting through the silence. Sheriff Harlow stood frozen, the beam of his flashlight fixed on the black phone. Dust coated the floor around it, thick and undisturbed. No footprints, no signs of anyone entering or leaving. Yet the voice had been clear, alive, like a child standing right beside him. He crouched, staring at the phone. The receiver swayed slightly, as if someone had just set it down. He reached for it, then stopped. The silence pressed against his ears, heavy, unnatural. Finally, he lifted it. Static hissed, faint at first, then louder. Beneath it, the child's voice returned. "Too late. He found me." Sheriff Harlow's throat tightened. Who found you?" The line crackled. Then another voice, deeper, distorted, joined in. It was rough, dragging across his ears like broken glass. "He's listening now." The sheriff dropped the receiver. It hit the floor with a hollow thud, but the voices didn't stop. The boy cried out, muffled, like he was being pulled away from the line. The deeper voice followed, whispering words Daniel couldn't make out. He backed away, flashlight trembling in his grip. His radio hissed suddenly, filled with static. He lifted it to his mouth. "Dispatch, I need backup at the old Miller house, now." Only static answered. Then, over the static, his own voice repeated back to him, warped and echoing. "Backup at the old Miller house, now." His blood went cold. He turned to leave, but the door he had entered through was now closed. He reached for the knob, twisted hard. It wouldn't budge. He slammed his shoulder against it. Nothing. The wood didn't even creak. Behind him, the phone rang. The sharp mechanical sound echoed through the empty house, each ring louder than the last. Daniel forced himself to turn. The rotary phone's dial spun on its own, clicking rapidly, stopping, then spinning again. On the 10th ring, the sound cut off. The room fell silent again. He stood still, every nerve screaming at him to get out. He pulled at the window, but it was boarded from the outside. Nails sealed deep into the frame. Then, from down the hallway, footsteps, slow, heavy, coming closer. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then the boy's voice again, just behind him, close enough to feel the breath at his neck. Sheriff Harlow. He spun, light flashing across the room. Empty. When he turned back, the phone was gone. In its place, lying in the dust where it had been, was a wallet. He picked it up with shaking hands. Inside was an ID, his own. The hallway groaned, the floorboards bending under unseen weight. Shadows lengthened, crawling along the walls, moving toward him. The boy's voice whispered once more, broken and distant. "You shouldn't have come." The last bulb of his flashlight flickered. Then everything went dark. He picked it up. "Sheriff's office," a small voice answered. "My dad didn't come home. Can you help me?" Daniel straightened in his chair. The voice sounded like a boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old. Soft, shaky, like he had been crying. "Where do you live, son?" the sheriff asked. There was a pause. Then the boy gave an address. Daniel froze for a second. He knew that place. Everyone in town did. The house on the edge of town. Old, boarded-up windows, empty for years. No one lived there anymore. "Your father went to that house?" Daniel pressed. "He works late. He was supposed to come back." "But he didn't." The boy's voice broke into static for a moment, then returned. "Please, Sheriff, I'm scared." Daniel's hand gripped the receiver tighter. He tried to trace the call, but the screen showed nothing useful, just an unlisted number. He grabbed his hat and radio. Empty house or not, a missing father and a child in distress were reasons enough. The night outside was cold, the kind that seeped through his coat. His cruiser cut across the lonely road leading out of town, headlights slicing through mist. The house stood ahead, crooked and gray against the pale moon. Its roof sagged and the porch leaned to one side. No lights, no signs of life. He parked by the rusted gate. The grass was high, swallowing the path. His boots crunched over gravel as he approached. The air smelled of rot and damp wood. The boards on the front door hung loose, easy to push aside. Inside, the house was darker than the night outside. The beam of his flashlight swept across cracked wallpaper, broken frames on the walls, dust thick enough to choke. Every step stirred echoes in the hollow space. The sheriff moved room by room. The kitchen held rusted pots and an overturned chair. The living room was bare except for a collapsed sofa. No signs of anyone, no sound but his own breathing. Then, from upstairs, a voice. Sheriff Harlow. He froze. The same boy's voice. Clear. Calling his name directly. The hairs on his arms rose. He had not given the child his name on the phone. "Hello?" His voice echoed up the staircase. Silence followed. Then the boy spoke again. "I'm here. Please help me." Daniel climbed, boots creaking against the steps. The smell changed as he rose. Damp earth, dust, and something metallic. He reached the second floor. Doors lined the hallway, most shut, their paint peeling. The voice came from the last door on the left. The sheriff moved toward it, each step slower than the last. "Come in," the child whispered. He reached for the knob. The door opened with a groan. His flashlight cut through the dark. The room was empty. No child, no furniture, no curtains, just bare walls, cracked plaster, and shadows. In the middle of the floor sat a black rotary phone. Its cord stretched into nothing, cut short, as if severed years ago. The receiver was off the hook. From the speaker, the boy's voice spoke again, soft but sharp, as if the words crawled straight into Daniel's ear. "Sheriff, my dad is here. Won't you come closer?" The phone clicked once, then silence. Sheriff Harlow stood frozen, the beam of his flashlight fixed on the black phone. Dust coated the floor around it, thick and undisturbed. No footprints, no signs of anyone entering or leaving. Yet the voice had been clear, alive, like a child standing right beside him. He crouched, staring at the phone. The receiver swayed slightly, as if someone had just set it down. He reached for it, then stopped. The silence pressed against his ears, heavy, unnatural. Finally, he lifted it. Static hissed, faint at first, then louder. Beneath it, the child's voice returned. "Too late. He found me." Sheriff Harlow's throat tightened. Who? Who found you?" The line crackled. Then another voice, deeper, distorted, joined in. It was rough, dragging across his ears like broken glass. "He's listening now." The sheriff dropped the receiver. It hit the floor with a hollow thud, but the voices didn't stop. The boy cried out, muffled, like he was being pulled away from the line. The deeper voice followed, whispering words Daniel couldn't make out. He backed away, flashlight trembling in his grip. His radio hissed suddenly, filled with static. He lifted it to his mouth. "Dispatch, I need backup at the old Miller house, now." Only static answered. Then, over the static, his own voice repeated back to him, warped and echoing. "Backup at the old Miller house, now." His blood went cold. He turned to leave, but the door he had entered through was now closed. He reached for the knob, twisted hard. It wouldn't budge. He slammed his shoulder against it. Nothing. The wood didn't even creak. Behind him, the phone rang. The sharp mechanical sound echoed through the empty house, each ring louder than the last. Daniel forced himself to turn. The rotary phone's dial spun on its own, clicking rapidly, stopping, then spinning again. On the 10th ring, the sound cut off. The room fell silent again. He stood still, every nerve screaming at him to get out. He pulled at the window, but it was boarded from the outside. Nails sealed deep into the frame. Then, from down the hallway, footsteps, slow, heavy, coming closer. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then the boy's voice again, just behind him, close enough to feel the breath at his neck. "Sheriff Harlow." He spun, light flashing across the room. Empty. When he turned back, the phone was gone. In its place, lying in the dust where it had been, was a wallet. He picked it up with shaking hands. Inside was an ID. His own. The hallway groaned, the floorboards bending under unseen weight. Shadows lengthened, crawling along the walls, moving toward him. The boy's voice whispered once more, broken and distant. "You shouldn't have come." The last bulb of his flashlight flickered. Then everything went dark.